New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
Free my mind, open my heart with the whispers of truth, to live a conscious life, to live a conscious life on the growing edge, on the growing edge.
And now, here's Allie.
Hello and welcome back to Growing Edge Live. I'm Allie Benjamin, and it is my great joy to be here again. And if you're here for the first time, I'm so happy that you are. Whatever led you here today, I honor and acknowledge that you listened and you came and you're here with us. And for those of you that are regulars, I'm so glad that you're here too. As you know, we are sponsored by the Satya Center, and we're all about focusing our attention on healing, transforming and involving consciousness. And we're doing this today by having another Enneagram chat. And so for the past few months, I have been having a conversation with my colleague and dear friend, Michelle Medrano, and we talk about everything Enneagram. And so I'm glad you're here today. I know you're going to get something helpful, useful, something practical for your spiritual path and spiritual tool belt. And Michelle, welcome.
Thank you, Allie. It's great to be here for another Enneagram chat.
Yeah, Michelle and I have been deeply studying the Enneagram. Well, she's been doing it for a lot longer than I have, as her mother has been teaching it for 30 years or so. And Michelle and I were recently in a course together, and we are coming out of this course with such an excitement and enthusiasm for what we've learned and how we're developing our new businesses based on blending metaphysics, new thought, and the Enneagram as a spiritual structure, framework, language to awaken and become more grounded, peaceful, purposeful, and heart-centered. Would you say that that's true for you as well as me?
I love the way you put that. Absolutely, I would say that. And it's fun. It's a fun challenge blending all of this together. Up until now, I've experienced a lot of it kind of, this is the Enneagram and this is New Thought or metaphysics or our spiritual teachings. And not that there hasn't been a blend from the authors or from our teacher, my mom, Linda, but it's really been powerful to consciously go, okay, how does this all fit together? And it's all about self-awareness. I think anybody who's on a path for self-awareness is probably very interested in all that we're offering here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's definitely, it's almost like learning a new language.
It is.
Because, you know, New Thought, metaphysics had been my primary language as a teacher and a teacher for the last few decades. And so now bringing in the new vocabulary of the Enneagram, and it's an interesting energy to bring together, and really love that we've committed to having these conversations about it, because it really pushes me to move in that direction with a bit more focus and intensity, and I love it. And it's,
me too.
You know, it's all making more and more sense, and so I really appreciate us having these conversations, Michelle.
Thank you. Me too. It's really fun, and you're right. Very helpful to us as we grow, and hopefully helpful to your wonderful audience as they grow with us.
Yeah. So last time we had a conversation about the three centers of intelligence that the Enneagram is kind of core themes to understanding the Enneagram. But it's not specific to the Enneagram. It's really a large conversation. We all have heard about, developing our minds, our intellect. Here in the West, we're very focused on that. We have been introduced over the last couple of decades to the idea or the notion of emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
And so, that's something. And then there's the body intelligence or kinesthetic or somatic intelligence that for me is kind of the newer piece. And so last month, we talked about these three centers of intelligence, and we actually did a little activation or gave you some homework about developing these three centers for yourselves and exploring how we can do that through meditation and using the breath to go inside and notice the local thoughts and the greater mind of the universe. In New Thought, we call it divine mind or the mind of God. And so there's that differentiation between what's going on here and then the greater potential. And then the heart, same thing, our local heart and feelings and emotions, and then expanding that out to the greater field of love that's possible, compassion and gentleness. And so there's that, again, that differentiation between what's going on in here and how to maybe connect with the greater heart and the body too. So we talked about that. And so I hope that all of you took some time to do that depth work and that inner work. And now we want to go a little bit further into get a bit more specific about bringing in the 9 Enneagram types and how we might actually, if you know your type, that's great. You'll be able to understand you more deeply your specific road forward maybe. But for those of you that don't know your type, this is something that we can all use. It's not, you don't have to know your type. Wouldn't you think that that's true, Michelle?
Yeah, in fact, I think it's powerful that our teacher often starts us with an exercise upon first introducing us to the Enneagram to help us sense which of these three centers might be the most active in us. So it is a doorway into at least feeling a sense of the three, because there's 3 numbers in each center, where I might want to start my exploration of the Enneagram based on my strong sense of which center I am most comfortable with, active in, aware of in my life, the one that I think I use the most or I spend the most time in. So I think it is a great doorway in if people don't know what type they lead with yet.
Yeah, and I remember we did an exercise a couple of times in our class. Will you talk about that, the one where we're walking around?
Yes. Yes, and she's been doing that for years, and then we did a workshop last summer, and we did it again there, where we have everyone in the group just get up and start walking quietly and just focusing in on each center. And so she'll have us focus in on the head space and walk around and be looking at life through that lens, and then stop and then talk about it, and then do the same thing with the heart space and stop and then talk about it, and then the body and stop and talk about it. And through that, we often see people go, oh, well, when I was walking around, I was very clear in my head. I was thinking and I was noticing, and my head was saying, oh, look at that, and look at that. Oh, that person's got that on. Or I was walking around and I could just feel a connection to everyone in the circle, which would be maybe a greater indicator of the heart space, or the body, that somatic body that just feels like I'm here, I'm in the circle, I'm walking, I can feel myself on the earth. These kinds of feelings can help people distinguish. So it's great to hear people talk about it. And then, of course, there are some that feel all 3 of them. And so it's not always totally indicative, because many of our audience has probably done a lot of personal growth work, and they've learned to balance the head and the heart and the body. And so there may not be one that stands out, but through some of the things we'll talk about today, I think it might help people to get a better sense of it. But that activity of moving around and trying to view life while I'm moving, it can be very helpful to get people anchored in that.
Yeah, yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the three centers and how we can feel them or get a sense of them in our own lives. Let's talk a little bit about body or gut intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
That's this kinesthetic intelligence, the wisdom of the body that's really tuned into a gut knowing or instinctual
Instinctual, yeah.
feeling of, moving in a particular direction or not moving, feeling hesitant. I think healthy, when we're feeling centered and grounded, we all, especially those of us that have done meditation, we're always prompted to be present in our body, to feel grounded and peaceful. And I think that's kind of the ideal place within this healthy body center, is to feel present in the now moment, to feel a sense of, connected to everything else around us. I think in an maybe an unhealthy way, we might experience maybe an urge to keep busy, to keep doing things, to try and control our environment, or maybe we feel sluggish or tired, and so this is maybe an indication that we can, slow down and pay attention to our body. I think that when we're overactive, when we're underactive, controlling, maybe we start to, project that out into our world. And so when we're feeling that way, I think those are indications that we've got some work to do, that it's easy to feel the distinction of being, inactive or overactive or sluggish, or maybe even feeling a bit angry or frustrated. Those could be signs that we've got some body work to do.
Yeah, and I think you've explained it very well. And I think a lot of times with the body types or the instinct people, their bodies are like a, a communication experience. People who are body types, depending on their number, will have a gut reaction, or they'll have a tell in their body that when someone is lying to them, they feel a little pang in their shoulder.
Mhm.
And that's how they kind of know their body is this landscape of communication for them, that they if they're really anchored, they hear. And sometimes, depending again on their number, they might deny, and they might be the people who might say, well, when I'm really stressed, my body gets sick quickly.
Mhm.
Other numbers might get stressed, and it shows up in different ways. But an instinctual type, their body might respond first to information, to stress, to the things that are going on. So I think that's an indication, if you're a body type or an instinct type, that you might have that kind of relationship with your body temple.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's wonderful to be talking about these centers, because, as you mentioned, there's three types that primarily lean on this kind of way of moving through the world and getting a sense of things, but we can all develop this.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so let's move not quickly, but let's transition to the heart.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when we have some heart awareness, emotional awareness, we can also go for that feeling of feeling centered and peaceful and grounded in our heart center. I think that in a healthy way, we feel, connected to those around us. We feel we have a good relationship with ourselves, self-love, compassion. we're able to see clearly other people and be more accepting of when they're in a healthy or an unhealthy state. We don't take things personally, maybe when we're in that more healthy state. But then when we're in an unhealthy state, we might experience sadness or depression, or we're overly emotional or overly sensitive about things, take things personally, maybe feel disconnected with others. And I think we all have, it through this lens of the heart center, we can see that, if we're feeling in an unhealthy place there with ourselves or with those around us, that we can take that as a sign to do some work with the heart center.
Yes, the heart center, all about connections to people, connections to feelings, connections. It's a very warm heart place to view life through. And I do agree with you. I mean, even though we may have one of these centers that's more active, part of the work we do when we start to work with the Enneagram is to begin to create balance, because we do have relationships to other numbers and other centers. So it's a great way to get balance. But the heart center is definitely one that's focused on that heart stuff and that feeling stuff and those emotions. Yeah.
Yeah. And then we've got the head center.
Mm-hmm.
And again, we know what it feels like to be peaceful in our minds and to be grounded and centered. I think that's what we're going for with each of the centers, to be in that place of sort of calm and balance and feeling connected. In an unhealthy state, the head, we might notice that we're anxious or worried or agitated, or maybe we're in denial about something, or we're obsessed with a particular thought, maybe a bit delusional around particular things, blow things out blow things up in our minds. We maybe are overly questioning or uncertain or fearful, or avoidant of particular things, people, situations, because of what's going on here. So what are your thoughts? I know that both of us have studied mental science, and so we have probably a lot to say about this center. But just briefly, how do you feel about this head center and gaining a sense of how it's connected to the other two?
Well, I think in its greatest balance, you've articulated it quite well. The head center folks are great thinkers, and they can think things through, and they can think very healthily about challenges and problems and options, and have great knowledge base. In an unhealthy state, I remember years ago coming across a really funny writing that I would share in talks about a person who was attending a Thinkaholics Anonymous, and that they couldn't stop thinking. And so I've always kind of used that as the unhealthy state of a thinking based or head type based person, where they just can't stop thinking. They can't stop thinking about something. They have a hard time. You mentioned meditation earlier, like one beautiful state that one can fall into in meditation is the ending of thoughts and the quietness, even just for a moment of no thought. And I think head types have a hard time attaining that state, and they overthink things. They just overthink or think too much, or they're motivated by what's going on in their center. Their engine is always, what do I think about that? What do I think about that? And what do I think about that? So they can be very over addictive to thought. So, beautiful gifts with this one, and beautiful challenges also.
Yeah, and I think in New Thought, in the Science of Mind, we really get a clear understanding when we're in classes and when we're learning about the thing itself, what it does, the way it works, and how to use it, that we get this sense that we're more than our mind. We're that which has a mind. We're more than our body. We're that which has a body. And we're more than our emotions. We're that which has emotions. And the science of mind doesn't talk so much about the emotions, the heart, as much as it
Yeah.
does the body and the mind. And
Yeah,
so
no.
that's an
Yeah.
interesting kind of weaving here too.
Although Holmes does talk a lot about you can't just think things into being. You have to have an element of feeling, a sense of confidence, a sense of heartfulness with what it is that you want to create. And I do think that you're pointing to one of the greatest errors that people make who are practicing metaphysics is that they think they know what they think. And so the thinking types they're the most prone to say, but I've been thinking affirmative thoughts and nothing is happening. And there's a I always call it a dissonance often between what we really think we're thinking and what we're really thinking. And below the surface of the conscious mind, in the deeper mind, in the unconscious, or some people call it the subconscious, it includes the feelings that we've felt. It includes the decisions that we've made within our body. And all of it is working together to generate our experience of life itself. And so thinking types are prone to think, but I'm thinking good thoughts. Why isn't something happening? And it's because they sometimes don't have the capability to understand that it's also the unconscious thoughts, and those are the ones that are winning. That's what will run the show until we can bring those unconscious ideas forward and see them more consciously. So that also can be a gift of a thinking type. A thinking type, upon realizing this, can also bring forth those deeper thoughts and be able, I think, to see them clearly, whereas a heart type would be able to maybe access, oh gosh, I thought this, but below the surface, I'm really feeling unworthy. And they can really fall into the feelings of unworthiness. And the instinct type, if they fall into their deeper body sense, can feel, oh my gosh, all this stress I've been carrying in my hips because I'm so stressed out about life. And they can do something in the body to kind of move the energy. So the metaphysical aspect of us that wants to create a better life can use all three of these centers to do just that. But we can't just use the head. We can't just use our thoughts, or nothing will ever happen.
Yeah, it's all connected, the body mind
It is.
connection. And, you think of thinking an embarrassing thought and our cheeks turn
Yes,
red, right? Like it's all
exactly.
connected.
Yes. Yeah. So
Yeah.
we talk about imagine right now eating a lemon, and your mouth will react. It'll start producing more saliva. So we are very interactive, reactive beings. Our thoughts can change our experience, just like that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's just so interesting that we learned through studying science of mind a particular way of seeing this body mind heart connection, and now with the Enneagram talking specifically about these three centers of intelligence, it just adds such dimension and depth to it to be to be able to kind of go into each one a little bit more consciously, to then come back to activate or integrate or build coherence between these three centers. And I think there's many benefits of having this awareness, but being able to make decisions in your life, for some people that maybe aren't so connected to their feelings and emotions, they may make decisions out of their head and they just have connection to moving forward with the body center, but they may lack that ability to really check in. How do I feel about this? What impact will this have on others? And bringing that heart into someone that's hasn't made decisions in that way can probably change their life. Well, I know it can change their
I
lives.
know it can
Change
too.
your
Yeah.
thinking, change your life, right?
Exactly. Yeah. It also, I think, part of what I love about the Enneagram, and I think what sometimes we don't have a real good grasp of when we're seeking to change our lives, it's about motivation. All of the numbers on the Enneagram, each one has within it what is motivating and driving people forward. and driving behavior and driving decisions and driving choices. And so this adds a element to that, where if I understand that I'm a thinking based type, then I might understand that my motivation is to think about something. And if I know that about myself, and I can not only use that in a more positive direction for myself, but then also bring in some of that heart energy, like I think you're talking about, that it helps to make me have a stronger motivation that can move me towards what I really want instead of what I don't want. That's the thing about what's motivating us. It's often below the surface. It's not always evident to us. And upon finding our number on the Enneagram, it gets like a door opens and it's like we see ourselves at a deeper level. Indeed, that's why often people are rejecting the number that they really are. They might say, I want to be anything but an 8. I would never want to be an 8. And then it often turns out, well, yeah, they lead with an 8 because they're seeing the shadow of themselves in that number. But then when we settle into that number that we lead with, then we can lead ourselves forward and get into alignment with that motivating factor in a way that can really create some momentum for us instead of keep us limited and stuck.
Yeah. So, I think it maybe on another episode, we might want to dive into those motivations.
Yes.
I think that'd be really clarifying for people that are wanting to understand about maybe their own type and just the Enneagram in general and their relationships, the people in their lives, to understand the motivation that leads people to act in particular ways, or maybe annoy us, or
yes,
maybe things that attract us to other people. And exploring our core motivations could be an interesting way. We're right at the bottom of the hour. We're going to take a short break. And then Michelle and I will come back and talk a little bit about each of the types and the centers. And maybe you'll see yourself in one of those. So we'll be right back.
Please help us say thank you to our organizational sponsors, including the Hefferland Foundation, Affiliated New Thought Network, International New Thought Alliance, Science of Mind Archives and Library Foundation, Center for Spiritual Living Denver, Center for Spiritual Living Midtown, New Thought Philadelphia, Planned Happiness Institute, Summit Center for Spiritual Living, One Heart Retreats, Center for Spiritual Living on the Lake, Unity Kitchener, Unity Spiritual Center Ottawa, Om Center for Spiritual Living, Satya Center, Begin Within Ministries, Center for Spiritual Living North Jersey, Unity of Savannah, and the Center for Spiritual Living Seattle, as well as all of our individual donors. Thank you for being part of the New Thought Media Network. Please like, share, and subscribe. New Thought Media Network, positively inspiring.
New Thought Media Network is on the rise. We're looking to grow with you. Do you have technical media experience, or perhaps a desire to learn? Are you willing to volunteer your precious time and attention? We share this message to benefit all. If you possess a computer with a camera and a microphone, we will share our knowledge with you. Behind the scenes or being the star, let us bless our one. Contact us at info@ntmedia.org.
Free my mind, open my heart with the whispers of truth, to live a conscious life, to live a conscious life on the growing edge.
And now, here's Allie.
We're back.
Mhm.
So where should we start? Should we start with the head or with the heart or with the body?
I say we do the heart last, because that's when we're going to share, and so we can maybe do a Rochambeau to decide who goes first on the head.
Well, why don't we start with the body,
Okay.
and then we'll move to the head and we'll go to the heart.
All right. That sounds
Okay. So we're talking about how each of the types relate to their center of intelligence. And so each of the Enneagram types relates to their intelligence, their somatic intelligence or kinesthetic intelligence, their emotional intelligence or their mental intelligence. And each type has a distinct way of responding to core emotions like anger, sadness, grief, fear, anxiety, shame. And so this is how each of the body types responds to this intelligence. So type 8, we'll start with 8 because there's 3 body types. The 8s, which are the challengers, the 9s, which are the peacemakers, and the 1s that are the reformers or the perfectionists. And so the 8s are very in tune with their energy, their emotions, their strong emotions. They can be the ones out of all 3 that are really connected to their anger. And they're quick to express this. Now, there are some little differences within the 8s. Some 8s are less likely to be, hot-headed or angry. They have better maybe control of that. And so there's a variation. There's a bit of a scale with just within the 8s. 8s really want to have control of what's going on around them. They want to manage their own safety, and they want to protect others that they care about. They are concerned with justice and injustice. And so they are somehow listening. Maybe it's with the body, instinctually they'll get a read on the environment, and this energy will come out. Sometimes can be too much for people, and they can cause people to move away from them. I know for me, my dad was an 8, and he was one of the 8s that was sort of had that, and it wasn't really overt with his angry energy, but I could always feel it with him. There was always a sense that he was in control, and he was controlling some way. And me, as a sensitive type 4, was very aware of how to avoid that anger for myself. I didn't want to evoke it or have it directed towards me. Let's see, I have a couple of notes here. 8s often cope with anger by discharging it physically through movement, confrontation, or assertive action. They release the tension of anger by engaging in intense physical activities, such as working out or being directly expressing their anger outwardly to regain a sense of control. So you might see an unhealthy 8 that doesn't have a control over these things, that is sort of just reacting to the world around them in a very big, outwardly expressive way. Now, healthy 8s can learn to pause, to feel this anger that runs through them, but be able to express it in healthier ways, maybe soften their intensity through some grounding practices, or just having the self-awareness to just take a pause and learn how to respond from a deeper place. Maybe those healthy 8s that have got deeper connection with their heart and with their mind, they'll consider or confer with these two senses of intelligence before they respond. And then there's the nines. The nines are the peacemakers. These folk are also, they are in tune with their anger, but it's not something that they're going to express. They will on occasion, but it will be very different than the eight. And so you'll get a sense with the peacemaker, they will, they're always seeking harmony and connection with others and wanting everything to be peaceful. So there's a sense of wanting to control that. And oftentimes the nines aren't comfortable with exerting control, or they don't even sometimes know what it is they want because they're so tuned in to everything and everyone around them. So often nines can go to a place of inaction and not know how to move forward in their worlds. And so for nines, it's about having a real connection to what it is that really they're feeling, what's important to them. And those healthy nines that have access to their heart center and their head center, they can learn to reconnect with their bodies. They can become more aware of the anger that maybe they're not expressing for whatever reason, and be able to release it in appropriate ways by speaking up, sharing their opinion, knowing what it is that they want. And so using body-based grounding techniques for the nine, like breath work or doing a body scan, they can become more attuned and be able to acknowledge what they're feeling and what their emotions are. And rather than avoiding conflict or difficulty, they can engage in it in a more mindful and appropriate way. Mm-hmm. And then we've got the type ones. And the type ones are the reformers, and they're attuned to their bodies through a sense of tension and control. And the ones are often holding themselves rigid to maintain a sense of correctness. Ones are concerned with getting things right. They are the ones that are less tuned in to their anger. They may not even identify with being angry at all, but it's repressed. It sort of comes out in maybe by being critical, self-critical, or critical of others, or wanting to nitpick or control situations or circumstances or those around them. And they can get frustrated and get resentful when things don't go their way. So again, with the body types, it's really about managing their energy, having a sense of autonomy. These things are like central to their way of being and moving through the world. So for the ones, they may develop some practices like deep muscle relaxation and breathing, mindfulness can help the ones release some of the tension that they feel inside their body if they're willing to actually go inside and feel this tension. And then they can engage with these activities to help them manage their anger. And sometimes being angry can be good for a one. Actually giving voice to their frustrations and anger, and knowing that it's okay, because ones can be very hard on themselves and think that being angry is a bad thing. So being able to speak up or share what you're frustrated or angry about can be very helpful for the ones. So this somatic kinesthetic intelligence can be developed, and we'll, at the end of our discussion on each of the types, we'll give some ideas on how all of us, not just the particular types, can gain some greater awareness around these three intelligence centers. So How about the head?
Beautifully done there. Beautifully done. Very comprehensive and great tips for every number. Thank you very much. Um, so I don't know that I have as many tips for the numbers. I think I'll have to come up with them as we go. So I'm going to focus on the head or the thinking based types, and I'm going to start with the 5. So it's the 5, 6, and 7 are the 3 types that we're looking at here in this center. And the 5 is often called the observer. Often they are the one that's kind of standing outside of a group of people, or they are, some would say, more introverted, but not all 5s are introverted. It's just that they are very observant. And so being a thinking based type, the 5 is habitually caught up in their head and habitually focused on knowledge. Part of what they love is they are very proud of what they know often, and proud to be an expert. So they will focus and they will use their energy to move towards what they know, which is a great gift because 5s are often very intelligent, smart people that bring beautiful solutions and options. However, what the motivation is for these head types is often about staying out of fear. So they use their focus on systematic thinking and knowledge to manage the fear that's below the surface, some sort of insecurity or fear about the future, or fear of what might happen. And so it's all about managing fear, which we know is impossible as a human being because we all get afraid. But 5s actually think that they can conserve themselves by just staying focused on their head. They're very analytical, very objective, and they often spend a lot of time pursuing their intuitive abilities, all the while kind of pushing away the emotional stuff and even their body stuff. They're all about developing their head stuff. And so that's an important part for 5s. So 5s can learn to manage this, I think, a little bit by creating some balance, by at some point maturing enough to understand that their emotions and the fear that's below the surface is important for them to see and acknowledge and to deal with, and to understand that they're being motivated by hiding from themselves, and begin to process, much like you said about the 1, begin to process and bring forth their emotional bodies, or get in touch with their physical bodies and get out of their heads. I always love the personal growth things that says that the longest journey is from the head to the heart, right? Well, this is the head based numbers. They all have some work to do to get out of their head and into their heart. And so a lot of times that can happen as they choose it and let themselves begin to feel more and to love more and to feel their fear and acknowledge their fears, that sort of thing. So the 5 is the intellect, and they're always conserving that energy. Conserving energy is important to 5s, whether it's their time, their money, their physical energy. They're all about managing that and keeping everything in check. And so that's a hallmark motivation of a 5. You may be a 5 if you are attempting to conserve your energy. And then we move on to the 6. The 6 is always seeking, in their management of their fear, they're always seeking preparedness. They don't like to feel helpless. Helplessness is the worst thing, the thing that they're trying to avoid. I don't want to appear or feel or be helpless. So I'm always using my energy, using my mind to project out into some imagined future, to assess the risks, to be prepared, to make sure I have everything I need for that meeting, for that time I want to go on that trip, for that retirement, for that conversation. There's always that kind of focus out into the future. And oftentimes this was born, I think, a lot of these, we can always look back at the genetic or the childhood experience, but a lot of times a 6 is born out of a time possibly where there was an experience where they were in danger, or they had to create an adaptive strategy in their core setup to meet some scary reality that was going on for them. And so it becomes a habit to cope with the threats and to kind of always feel as though there's a threat afoot. And in the worst case, most stressful 6, it's that feeling of always being scared of the shadows, scared of that noise, scared of the weather, scared of the future, scared of the politics, scared of this, scared of that, scared of this, scared of all of it, because that's just how they've learned to cope and manage the fear. And so they can often experience it by feeling the fear, freezing in the fear, or being runners from the fear. The classic flight, fight, or freeze kind of experience that people have with fear. This is often where a 6 will experience themselves. So they're constantly learning or working to manage the safety level of themselves and others. I was having a conversation with a group of people recently, and everyone in the group was talking about, there were a number of security experts, and all talking about how they always poise themselves in a restaurant to know where the door is. And they're always, or a theater, or any dwelling they're in, they're always noticing where's the door, where are the threats, what would I do to keep people safe here? So that's kind of the headset sometimes of a 6, not all 6s, but many 6s, that's where they will go. And their challenge is that they can get paralyzed by that overanalysis. They will just really analyze and go over the future things to prepare for. And if they're really in that obsessive space, they have a hard time getting out of that. And so 6s can find some sobriety, I think, in that, by actually doing the prep work they need to do and calling it good, feeling as though, okay, I did my preparation work. I did what I needed to do. I remember years ago being so afraid of earthquakes, and I actually wrote a book on fear, and I shared this story when I moved to California. I was so afraid of earthquakes, and while I'm not a 6, I'm a 3. I lead with a 3, but I do go to 6 across from me, and I was so afraid, I was paralyzed. And it helped me greatly to put together a plan, to actually go, okay, I do know how to turn the gas off if something happens. I do know how to turn the water off. I do have a bag in my car that if my car breaks down, whether it's from an earthquake or whatever, I'm prepared. So sure, prepare yourself, all 6s, and think through what you'd need to do to prepare. But notice if that thought process gets on some obsessive level. That's where 6s can get really caught up in their fear. They can often feel the fear the most of these 3 types. And so then we move on to the 7. The 7 type, their focus of attention is all about avoiding unpleasant feelings by focusing on what feels pleasant and keeping their mood and everything around them upbeat, to the point of constantly reframing negatives into positives. We've heard a lot in our culture these days about toxic positivity. And sometimes someone who is practicing a lot of toxic positivity, you might be a 7 if you practice toxic positivity. And it's all about avoiding the fear of possibly facing a choice that might not work out, or not having enough choices to cope with life. Often 7s will say that their biggest moment of fear in the day is if suddenly there's not enough choices, or in life, if they don't have enough choices, they literally feel afraid, and they feel anxiety, and they feel scared. And so they thrive by creating and manage their fear by creating as many fun opportunities and positive, happy thoughts and happy experiences. And all of it is about managing their fear, pushing aside the fear, not feeling the fear, avoiding the fear. And they are really quick thinkers. They make quick, rapid connections to things and choices and people. And well, I know you, and you know that, and you know this. And so they're very powerful thinkers, as all of these 3 numbers are, but their thinking can be overdone. And so the sobriety for a 7 can often be about taking a deep breath and just allowing themselves to, instead of have 5 choices today, what would it might be like if I had 2? Or I had 1, or I can find sobriety in that and not be so caught up in my head, that sort of thing. So those are some highlights of our thinking-based types.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah. So we've got the heart types, which
Yes.
you and I both reside in that triad.
Yes, we do.
And so the heart types are concerned with connections. They're concerned with maintaining those connections that are important to them.
Mm-hmm.
And they can also struggle if those connections are broken, or things don't go the way they had hoped they would go, with feelings of sadness or grief, and even spiraling into shame and guilt.
Mm-hmm.
And so the twos, they're known as the helpers, and the twos are very concerned with being helpful to other people. They are deeply concerned with their connections, and they have great emotional intelligence in a healthy space. They can really get a sense of what people need. In an unhealthy state, they can move to thinking that they always need to be helpful, or they always know what other people need. And this can become, not such a good strategy for them. So building some emotional intelligence around boundaries, around what's important here. Is this urge to be helpful? Is this something that is going to benefit or positively impact myself and the other? Or am I actually moving towards enabling? Because twos can have a tendency to become enablers and become enmeshed or even codependent. So there's a definite contrast between being in that healthy space of having healthy boundaries, and they also are seeking love. And so an insecure, unhealthy two might feel unlovable. And so they're motivated to be helpful and supportive of others because they're seeking to gain love or be recognized in that way. Let me just check. Let's see. Yeah, so that's the twos, and you're a three.
Mm-hmm.
So would
Yeah.
you like to talk a little bit about the threes and what it feels and like to be in a healthy state and unhealthy state?
Yes, well, the bane of existence for a three, they in this triad might be the ones who can be the most in denial about their feelings, their heart space, even though they have strong feelings and can feel strong feelings. But they start out and fall into being a three and leading with a three, often by believing that they are what they do and not who they are. And so they can become very good, productive people, get a lot done. Boy, if you want things done, let a three do it. They'll get it done. They'll be efficient. But they can overwork in a way that allows themselves to be in denial about their feelings. And so a three, though they have strong feelings, can even get so good at hiding from their feelings that they hide from themselves, and they can also hide their true feelings from other people when they're out of balance, when they're in that not so balanced state. When they start to choose to move into balance and to actually access and utilize their heart space, they can be very kind, loving people who can feel their feelings. And I think that kind of, for me, I know it's required me to delve into my four wing a little bit more powerfully. My four wing, as I've grown older, has helped me gain access to my feeling nature. But it took a conscious decision on my part, because I could just easily just go over my feelings. And I feel like there's the core idea of why we start possibly being in denial of our feelings is that feelings are messy and they get in the way of us getting stuff done. And so I can't stop to cry right now. I've got things to do. That's kind of what a three might be saying. But really, the truth is that we're much more productive in life in terms of the connection and relationships that we're seeking when we finally allow ourselves to feel our feelings. So that's the basic ideas for us threes. And you're a four, so I think you would be the best to describe and share with us about the four.
Yeah. Well, being a four, we're very concerned, just like the 2s and the 3s, with maintaining connections to those around us. And so with that being, at the forefront, there's this sense for the 4 of showing up in the world as our authentic self, of having a real sense of self. So when I learned about the science of mind, I was like, oh, this is great. I'm going to understand who I am. Because I think that many 4s are, maybe early on, they didn't really get a sense of who they were. Maybe they didn't have the parents in their lives or people around them that mirrored that. And so many 4s can be on this quest for deep understanding, and it can become a slippery slope or move into an unhealthy place with always seeking to find that special, unique sense of self. And so we 4s can become quite self-absorbed and become quite emotional if things don't go our way. We also can be very attuned to what's missing, what we perceive as missing in our lives. The grass is greener elsewhere.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of comparison going on, like, well, why do they have this and that experience in that life and I don't seem to? So there's this angst that can be, and this often in an unhealthy way can be turned back inside and have a feeling of like, oh, it must be me. There must be something wrong with me that I'm not experiencing, something fun or something enjoyable or meaningful out there. And so the road to becoming more balanced around this, and for the 4s, it's equanimity. It's being able to balance those emotions, not be so much in the past or so much in the future, but be present in the now.
Right.
And a practice for the 4 is to be grateful, to acknowledge the things in the world that counting our blessings, because our lives are pretty often way better than we're paying attention to. So those are all of the 9 types. And we're right here at the end, Michelle.
I can't believe it's so quick. Oh my gosh.
So we're going to have to come back and talk about some of the ways that we can build upon these intelligence centers. And so maybe next time we'll talk about that, and maybe the core motivations behind why each type does what they do. And any final thoughts?
Yeah, I think I really appreciate this conversation, and I think we've given people some things to think about within each number, and just feel into if any of these feel like you at all, and just pay attention to what you're paying attention to, and that might really help a lot.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Michelle. I love you, and I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you to New Thought Media Network for producing Growing Edge Live. And to you, the viewer, thanks for watching. I hope that you found some helpful things here that we've discussed with you regarding the Enneagram and the 3 intelligence centers. And I'll see you next week. Peace and blessings to you. Bye-bye.
Free my mind, open my heart with the whispers of truth, to live a conscious life, on the growing edge.